ever. Welcome again to our Seasoned Citizens Presents program. We're very happy to be with you again today. My name is Don Lange. Today we're going to visit with one of Muscatine's finest. We have in our studio with us today Lieutenant Brian Hammer.
Well, glad to be with you, Don.
Welcome, Brian. We're very happy to have you with us. Now, let's start out telling some of your background. You're a local boy. You might speak of your past history and youth in Muscatine.
Well, I was born and raised here. I was living on Main Street, top of Main Street Hill, which I could tell you some stories of sliding down Main Street Hill in the wintertime, which we used to do. I went to school at the old Washington Elementary School, which was up on West 3rd Street. It's no longer there now, but I'm sure many of your viewers remember that. It was a beautiful old school building, brick and well taken care of. But it was quite outdated. I went to the old Central Junior High School, which is on Iowa Avenue. It's also gone at this time and has been replaced with the manor there. I then attended 1 year at the high school at 9th and Cedar Street in 1974, 1975. I did my sophomore year at that building. And at that time, we then moved to the new building located way out on Cedar Street. Went there for 2 years, and it was nice for a change to actually go to a brand new school building, considering the ones I had went to. Washington was over 100 years old, and Central was near 100 years old when I went to those. So it was nice to get to go to a new school building. So I've lived here all my life and been proud to be from Muscatine. So.
Great, yeah, you did move up as the school system moved, I guess, in the sense of it. That's an interesting factor. Okay, we've made it through high school now. Where do we go now, Brian? Do we have a further education planned?
Well, actually, it kind of a little bit of funny because I took the test to become a police officer while I was still in high school. I gave the civil service entrance exam in April back then. I had signed up to take that with the hope, knowing that that so-called list lasts for about a year, that I might be able to get hired, and I took it while I was still in high school. And I passed that list and was certified. I wasn't hired for a little bit after that. My desire was to go on to college, and I did enroll in Muscatine Community College, and I continued to work. I used to work at a Robo DX car wash when I was in high school. I was then hired at the police department when I was still 18, and I've worked there ever since.
Well, that's interesting. I was just going to kind of inquire as to your thinking, a desire to become a policeman. We all, as children, have a desire. You know, we're going to be a fireman or we're going to be a cowboy or whatever. But you actually really planned a career in police work in early ages.
Well, I had kind of had a little system mapped out. My interest is in law. I've had a long history in liking politics and law, and I had a school teacher by the name of Dwight Wolf, who was a history teacher who taught us segments on law in junior high school. Well, he ended up quitting his job as a teacher, and he moved to Florida. He lives in St. Petersburg.
Yes, he does.
Just graduated from law school a few years ago, and now he's practicing as a public defender down there. Well, he had a major impact on my decision to pursue a career in law, and my decision was that law enforcement provided a good opportunity to do that. So I in turn applied for that position and was lucky enough to be hired shortly after I graduated from high school. Most people need to remember, even back then, you know, such things as the drinking age, and that was 18, which makes it a little bit different now. It's very difficult for an 18-year-old to become a police officer now, as it was when I was 18 years of age. It was a very difficult time, and you had a lot of pressure on you, being only 18 and being a police officer. So you had to overcome those pressures, which I thought I did pretty well.
I'm sure you did, because you have advanced quite well, I think, in the development. Yeah, I wasn't aware that even in those days you were allowed at 18. You became a full-fledged patrolman. Did you have a course previous to doing that? I mean, did you go to like you do nowadays. I think they have different courses in the different areas. Do you have something at that time, or that's just right into it?
Well, no, actually I was hired at 18, and they send you to the police academy, but I didn't attend the police academy until I'd worked there almost 10 months. It used to be kind of a joke, because at age 18 I was able to join the police department, but the laws to purchase a handgun and purchase ammunition, you had to be 21, so anytime I needed ammunition, I used to have to con the guys I worked with, hey, would you, go out and buy me some ammunition? And I used to think that was kind of funny.
Yes.
But no, I then attended the Iowa Law Enforcement Academy in Des Moines after serving for about 10 months. So it was a lot of 10 months of learning on the street. Plus I had a police officer by the name of Lonnie Foltz, many people may know him, who was able to sit down and train, and he was basically my training officer, and I was thankful for the guidance he gave me in doing that. And then he graduated from the Law Enforcement Academy with 8 weeks of training, and there you're a certified police officer, but I was an actual police officer with powers of arrest and such the day they hired me. So.
You actually were at that time. You were sworn in, per se, as a full-fledged officer at 18.
Yeah, that's correct. Sworn in, and I remember the first arrest that I made was the first day that we had worked, and it was a shock. It's certainly a difference in an occupation.
Probably your adrenaline really went wild that day on your first arrest, regardless of what it might have been. Did you have shifts in those days too? I assume that's always been the way it's been worked at in the police department, a 3-shift system.
Yeah, we have shift work there, and we currently work 3 shifts. The day shift is frozen, and the second and third shifts, which swing every month at that time. And I was assigned to the little day shift hours for about a week when I first came on, so they could get. Biggest difficulty they had was finding me a uniform, because I was much skinnier back then. And but after I was outfitted in that, I was assigned to work the afternoon shift, and then after 2 weeks I ended up on the night shift.
That quickly, actually. You were out in the midnight shifts, and what did Mom and Dad think of this? Did they have any qualms about you becoming an officer, and then obviously out on a night shift where, well, so many things could transpire, obviously. Even in this day, we never know what's going to work. I mean, that's a thing. I wonder how they felt. Did they...
Well, I can remember my dad was certainly happy that I got a full-time job that had benefits and that much like parents would be today.
Sure.
They knew I was continuing going to college, actually full-time at the time I was hired, and working, so they felt rest assured that I was taken care of at that time.
So they were happy in that sense, even though it was a job.
It was a job.
To their looking and liking, like you said, Dad appreciated the fact that you were 18 and had found a position with continuing education.
Right.
Okay, now I know, having had some interest in your history, shall I say, knowing you for a few years, you've continued on with some educational base toward a future. May we invest in that a little bit?
Well, sure. As I was working, the luxury of working a second and third shift allowed me to go to school during the morning hours, which meant I was able to be with the regular students, and I wasn't working days and going just to night classes, so I was able to take a larger class load. So I would work, for instance, I'd get off at 6 o'clock in the morning, go home, take a shower, put on some clothes, and rush to school. And I was able to graduate from Muscatine Community College in 1980. I then automatically transferred to St. Ambrose College, then it's now University in Davenport, and I continued and graduated with a bachelor's in criminal justice from St. Ambrose University in 1983. I took the summer off and decided that, well, I didn't want to quit, that if I ever got out of the mood of studying, that I might hamper myself a bit.
Sure.
So I had taken the graduate record examination, the GRE, which is required to get into graduate school, applied at the University of Iowa for their graduate school there in political science, and graduated from there in 1986 with a master's degree in public administration. So I continued all the way through until I reached that point, continually going to school. So.
Well, that's great. I mean, well, you're still youthful. You're a little past 18, obviously, but still, through the years, you've continued along with your work. Rather a strenuous deal, I think. I mean, again, being youthful, I can't do these things anymore, but you have found time to continue. education with your work, and I think that's tremendous. I think that's a beautiful effort.
Well, I
that
think
you've,
you also forget the other third component in there is that when I went to Muscatine Community College, I met my wife, and we started dating, or I guess I met my girlfriend at that time, and so
Sure.
we started dating, and it wasn't long afterwards that she continued to be at Muscatine Community College, and she then transferred to St. Ambrose University, and we both went there and got married in 1981, and so that was the third component, work and school and being married, which certainly added
Oh, yes.
added to the juggling of your schedules
Absolutely.
and
I think
stuff.
that did a lot for us.
Most difficult part that I had was, for instance, I'd get off work at 6 o'clock in the morning, come home and take a shower, change my clothes, and my wife would get up, and we'd both drive to Ambrose together. I'd come home about 1 o'clock. She'd go to work. She had a part-time job at the time. I'd go to bed, and she'd wake me up at 9 o'clock, feed me supper, and send me on to work. So we had many months of really being able to see each other.
Quite a schedule figured. I know I wasn't going to forget Denise, because I think she's very definitely been a strong part of your life, and where your ambitions have fit, she's fell right into step with you on it, and has certainly backed you up wholeheartedly on it. So I mean, never forget that little girl. I think she's tremendous.
Well, her and I used to compete a lot for grades. We had several classes together, and she used to chide me about the fact that she thought I knew everything. Well, when her grades came out, and they were always better than mine. I had a good grade point average, and I was very satisfied considering I was working full-time in that. But I was very proud that she graduated with 3.9 grade point average from St. Ambrose.
Yeah, that's great, yes.
And very well, and she's currently finishing up on her MBA at St. Ambrose, and she graduated in December. So we've always had that little competition.
Along
between
with
each
a
other.
full work schedule, too.
Oh yeah, she
Yes.
continues to work full-time,
Yes.
and is in the St. Ambrose MBA program that offers that ability for full-time employees to
That's
go
tremendous.
at. So it certainly has been a struggle, but it's been well worth it, because we both
You bet.
appreciate neither my parents went to college, and neither her parents went to college, and we thought that was important, and
Absolutely.
to get that out of the way, and it's very pleasing to get that diploma at the end and realize that you had accomplished it. So.
That was tremendous. I realize a number of these points I wasn't aware completely. Now, just as a question, I know how your wife treated you in the class. How did other people take to you if they were aware you were a police officer? Was there any chiding, or was there any cop or any kind of facetiously chiding you about it at all?
No, actually,
Of course, St. Ambrose would be a little different thing than here.
Yeah, well, actually, when I met my wife out here, she didn't believe I was a police officer. She thought I was pulling her leg, and she ended up asking, I think, the instructor or somebody else, if that was true when I first met her. And, because she's just, frankly,
Sure.
she's a couple years younger than I am, but she thought I was too young to be a police officer.
Still young, you bet.
No, actually, when I went to MCC at the time, there was a lot of good students who went there, and we had some close relationships with some people who were there, and one, a bunch of them live in Davenport still, and we got to see them, and it was a pretty good, tight group, and we got along well. It was interesting because at the time I was going to MCC, it's back when the hostages were taken in Iran, and there were several demonstrations out at the college at the time because there were some Iranian students that went there, and I was hoping that it would not get to the point that I would have to go out there in an official capacity. But it worked out well. I think so. It was very pleasing, in fact, that the students treated me very well. And that's the reason I was glad I was able to take classes during the daytime, because you got to meet them and work in that capacity. So it worked out well.
Well, that's tremendous. Now, in that vein of education, I'm going to delve into the fact now that you also, along with everything else in your work, made a decision somewhere along the line to work into the Board of Education here and run for the board. When did this transpire?
Well, back in 1986, I had been on the strategic planning committee for the Muscatine School District. They had developed a committee in an effort to look to the future for the Muscatine schools, and I thought that was very important. I like a progressive community, and that since the school district was being progressive in that respect, I wanted to be a part of that. And I applied for that committee and got accepted, and served on that committee for a full year, and I was very happy with some of the progress we made. And if some people remember, that's back when the board was in a very big turmoil over finances, and they had laid off quite a few of the staff, and that the district was quite a bit in debt. And there was a lot of clamoring about having the whole board resign and that type of thing. So I thought it was a very important time to run, because I feeling was that they needed some people there who had a broad view. Too often people run for city councils or school boards that have a very narrow view. They like to serve a constituency, and however that constituency sometimes is too narrow. They're there for their specific advocacy group. And my thought is I could bring a broad perspective because I didn't have any of those. I didn't have any children in the school
Young, so
district.
you weren't really involved.
And at that point, so I made that decision, and there was a very, very close race at that time. There was a lot of people running, and I had only won by, I think, like 17 votes. But I was very happy to serve on that board, and was very glad to be elected.
Well, that's great. And then you served, one term, and then became president, or
Well, no, I served.
where were you there? I've lost track of that exactly.
I served one term on the school board, and after serving my first year, which was very educational, you learn about the $22 million business that our school district has, and it's grown to probably about $24 million now, because of some of the vacuum of the school board members leaving. They had a position for the presidency to be there, and I was willing to give that a shot, and I was very glad I did. It was very exciting to become president. It does, however, take away from a little bit of your ability to operate as a school board member, because as board president, you try to concentrate on bringing compromise to the other 6 board members, and you take away sometimes your ability to fight for an issue, because when you do that, you tend to anger other board members or what. But it was a very challenging position to bring the compromise around and get the board to act on several important projects that we had. We had some very important ones, including lowering the deficit that we had, which we were able to accomplish. Probably the most major issue was the $2 million addition that we built out of West Middle School that culminated after I served on the board. And probably one of the most exciting things that I did as president, that I was able to call on the Muscatine City Council and Muscatine Board of Supervisors to meet with the school board to develop the Muscatine Substance Abuse Council, in an effort to fight drug abuse in Muscatine area, because I've always felt that was a position that schools should even take. And it's not just a law enforcement view as a police officer. It's just not a law enforcement view. It's something that the school district had to take. So as president, I called to have that initial few meetings met, and it's culminated. They've had a lot of positive respect programs come out of that.
Yes, I realize there are many aboard right now in your present day that are functioning quite well toward that conquering of drug abuse and what have you, which you're still a part of, I realize. Matter of fact, I
We
think
could develop a council to get rid of that fly, too. But
we do have a member that's trying to join here. He's not saying much, but he's certainly involved himself all over. Okay, my next question would go into, from this fact of abuse that you'd constituted as a board member of the school and a police officer, where you were trying to integrate the two of them together. We now have a program called DARE that is quite prominent now, that we seem to have a great backing of. Could we kind of delve into that a little bit, Brian, explain some of that? I know people are somewhat acquainted, a lot of people aren't, so if you will.
Okay, well, after the Muscatine Substance Abuse Council formed, they put together some recommendations, and some of those recommendations included, for instance, law enforcement, to increase the number of dollars that law enforcement spent on drug enforcement. Well, one of the most important ones that I think came out of that council was the desire to teach substance abuse resistance education in the schools, and he certainly supported that. When I was on the board, we had developed several minor programs within the district, and there is a drug abuse resistance education. So out of that recommendation from the Muscatine Substance Abuse Council, the City Council and the Muscatine School Board approved the formation of a DARE officer. And a DARE officer is a police officer who has received special training from an institute on drug curriculum, and he's able to, and that fly is something else. He's able to teach that curriculum to our elementary schools, and the program has been pretty successful. The DARE officer that we have has done an excellent job in getting that program across. Side note to people, as they look at Los Angeles and Chief Darrell Gates out there with the Rodney King incident, it's important, I think, for people to realize that DARE was started in Los Angeles, and it was a project of Chief Gates. And while he's suffering all the backlash from that incident.
Yes.
He's probably not getting some of the credit for some of the things he has done. And DARE is certainly one of the best things he's done. And on a side note, also another program that he's done is increased a program called Standardized Field Sobriety Testing, which I'm an instructor in. And that came out of Los Angeles, California, through the Los Angeles Police Department. And that program has been adopted almost nationwide with almost every law enforcement agency that you can think of across the country has adopted the type of things that he put out. So there's another thing the Los Angeles Police Department did, but I think DARE is certainly the most important.
Great.
have.
I assume some people, I would confess, I wasn't aware that it was a nationwide program. So in other words, this is constituted all over.
DARE?
Yeah.
Yeah, DARE is pretty much nationwide, and not every school system has it. Not every police department is able to participate.
They don't all
in
develop it necessarily.
But they have DARE, I would imagine, in almost all 50 states at this point, and
That's great.
has proved to be very successful.
Well, again, it does take a combination of developments there and people that are interested in it to get this going. It just can't be one, like a police force on itself, I don't think could do that. It has to have cooperation from the city and the school board and what have you in order to make it work properly, I assume.
Well, that's one reason that when I was president of the school board, I called for that committee, and I was real happy with the response that the board members themselves had given, and the county board of supervisors and the city council into forming that, and realizing that substance abuse was a problem in Muscatine and not denying anything. And let's get out and get our act together and work together and solve the problem. And basically, I think they've determined that it works. And maybe at some point that cooperation will carry over in our jail project and Veterans Plaza and the 911 joint communications type of deals.
It's all very, very prominent right now. We're certainly right in the midst of it right now. It's going to transpire. We know that. It's just now we're trying to work out the fundamentals of finance and what have you, which is always, you've gone through that in the school board, so you know where that is, but we won't get involved in that particularly right now. You brought up just briefly about Chief Gates. Let me throw this at you. Since there's so much controversy about police brutality, let's hear from the other side. I mean, obviously you're accused if you draw a nightstick on someone to try to get them in line for what you're asking them to do, which is a lawful thing. What is your contention on it? I mean, you take a lot of abuse yourself, which I don't think is called for many times. What is your thought on that, Brian?
Well, the first thing that seat belts is a very controversial issue, and a lot of people say it's against the Constitution to make you wear it. Well, that's not the case. The Supreme Court has ruled in that, and they say that it is a legitimate authority of a jurisdiction to enact the seatbelt law. And the reason I support it is because they do save lives.
Sure.
And people will tell you stories, and they'll come up and tell you stories. Well, the policeman had said if I'd been wearing a seatbelt, I'd been killed. Well, a lot of those stories are ones that got passed on. I've been to many accidents where people had not been wearing their seatbelts and sustained injuries that they would not have if they had. And I've also seen people who had not worn their seatbelts. And the common phrase I used to get is, I'd rather be thrown clear. Well, I've been on several accidents where people have been thrown out of the car and hit the hard cement of a highway going about 55 miles an hour. And quite frankly, they didn't survive.
Surely.
So seatbelts save lives. They save money. They're just an important piece of safety equipment in a car, much like an airbag. I'm a very big supporter of airbags in cars, and hope that people, when they go out to buy a car, look at buying one with an airbag.
I think that's almost become now almost mandatory. I don't think there are too many cars any longer on the market that don't have them. And like you say, that's very, very much. What is your thought on passive seat belts, which are becoming a little more prominent in cars too?
Well, as long as the engineering behind those demonstrate to me that they work
Sure.
each and
It's
every
new
time,
yet. It's new.
I'm in support of them. Airbags, since we have a lot of cars nowadays have airbags, we started covering accidents with cars with airbags, and they simply work, and they work
do.
beautifully, and people should be proud that they bought a car with them. Otherwise, for instance, drunken driving, which Muscatine has taken a pretty good stand on in drunken driving, That's one of the biggest killers out there on the highway, and the seatbelt and airbags are one of your big defenses against a drunken driver. I might add that I'm currently president of the Iowa Traffic Control and Safety Association, which is a group of highway safety engineers. We're about 90% engineers, and the rest 10% of police officers and people that deal in public relations. We've been supporting seatbelts a long time, and highway safety engineers will tell you I can only design a highway so safe.
Surely.
And I have to rely on engineers with cars who design cars to design seatbelts and airbags to help save those lives. We'll be holding our annual meeting here in Muscatine next Thursday.
Great.
As president, I'm able to bring that to this part of Iowa instead of we usually have my name's in Des Moines.
Sure.
So
Well, that's
we'll
great.
be meeting at the Stanley
Help the
Building.
economy a little bit, possibly. I don't know
Certainly, they're staying
what
at
your-
the local hotels, and they'll
Sure,
be
sure.
eating at our local restaurants.
Well,
So.
that's great. Are you, excuse me, are you a member of other, seems to me you were involved in other fundaments too, police-wise, are you?
Well, I'm a member of several different
Yeah,
organizations
that's
that
what I was
relate to
thinking.
law enforcement, and I'm also involved in the community in other areas within our community and that aren't just simply police-related. I still also like to donate time to schools, and last year got awarded as a Friend of Jefferson School. The first annual Friends of Jefferson School Award, and I was one of those recipients. And Jefferson School holds a special heart to me because I like the students who go there, and I like
Yeah.
the teachers there, and then it's been a nice experience. So
Well, I've heard stories that you have been found dining at the different cafeterias around the schools, not just one, but a number of them, to kind of get an experience of what the actual working is. Now that you're not connected particularly with it, it still gives you some satisfaction to go around and see what might have been accomplished previously through you.
well.
I mean, really, I feel that that's important to you.
Oh yeah, well, and the focus on in helping the teachers
Sure.
in school and at the Jefferson, many people may know that my uncle Ed was the principal of that school,
Yeah,
so
right.
I was able to keep an eye on him at that time, and now he's retired and
Right.
probably out looking for work or something like that. But I, hope to continue to work in the schools in that respect.
Great.
But I like Muscatine, and I like to be a part of it. I think people who are citizens here need to volunteer their time, much like you have here with the Commission on
We
Aging.
need
and
some here.
important.
Believe, listen to us. Listen to Brian. We need some help here, too. Well, Brian, it's been, I think, a tremendous afternoon visiting with you here. Certainly appreciate you taking time and visiting with us and letting us in on some of these facts that some people may know, some people may not know. Now they know. At least you've came forth and give us a lot of information that I think is very exciting and good to listen to. So, again, we thank you for taking this time off, and we appreciate the time. And also, I want to tell you, I think he's a great guy also because he's a St. Louis Cardinal fan, so that makes him tops in my book, too. Okay? Again, we thank you for being with us on our Seasoned Citizens Present program. We'd like to thank our cameraman and our director, and again, appreciate Heritage Cablevision for allowing us to have this time in their studio. So we say goodbye for now. Until next time. Thank you.
Thank you.